The Maroon White Pod brought to you by Citylink. For bookings, timetables, updates and any other information, head to citylink.ie. And you're welcome along to the Maroon White Pod. We had our show there early in the week, looking back on the preliminary quarterfinals. And now this evening, we're going to look ahead to the senior football quarterfinals. 8 teams remain in the hunt to win Frank Fox, and it will be down to 4 after this weekend, as well as the relegation semi-finals in senior, the preliminary quarterfinals in intermediate, and the relegation semi-finals as well in intermediate, of course. And there's even some action in the junior football championship as well. But if we're to just get straight into it straight away, and we'll look at the first senior quarterfinal. It's a local derby. It's between Moycullen and Knocknacarra at 4:45 in Pearse Stadium. Jonathan, coming to you first. This is for Moycullen and Knocknacarra supporters. They're going to get very excited about this because obviously very close in proximity. Knocknacarra have steadily built momentum, which adds to this as well.
Yeah, it's a huge game, isn't it? Isn't it, Paul? Probably arguably tied the round, and particularly when you factor in the respective performances last time out. I was thoroughly impressed with Knocknacarra against Milltown. I know, like, Milltown shot themselves in the foot a little bit, but you can only admire the quality and the fitness. And it felt a little bit maybe like Ireland in that France game under Trapattoni, where the players almost felt like they came together and decided we're going to attack a bit more, because they were frightening going forward. So many times over the last couple of years, I've seen Knocknacarra being a little bit too conservative, and it hasn't really got the best out of the players, because look, we know how good the players are, and there's a lot of big units of men out in the middle of the field there as well, and so much fluid movement in terms of guys popping in full forward and how fluid they are. And like, you only had to watch the last couple of moments of that Milltown game, where Milltown were throwing the kitchen sink and everything else at them, but it was Knocknacarra who just got the ball and ran out and ran out and ran out, and they were running as fast as it felt like, as fast as they were for the first ball. Like, they looked insanely fit. And I know Barry made a good point in your show earlier on in the week, where he's discussing that, like, this is the fruits of years and years of hard work. So like, they're going to come into this game absolutely full of confidence, like absolutely buzzing. Didn't really appear on the surface. I know, unless someone can correct me, that no major bumps and knocks from the Milltown game. They would have gone in. They'll go into this full of confidence. And Moycullen as well are just starting to get literally motoring a bit more as well. The last day out against James's was a bit of a scrap, probably one of the worst halves of football I've seen in a long, long time. What was it, 2 points apiece at half time? Horrible conditions in Pearse Stadium. But
just to interrupt you there on the Moycullen thing there, that's why it's kind of in one aspect here, it's hard to know where they are, because the last game they played obviously was that James's game.
Yeah, and I suppose on that, despite the elements being so horrible and so horrific, like, you're talking the usual customary Salthill weather on steroids almost. Like, it was that side, it was rain coming in, absolutely pelting in. It was a horrible day. Second game as well, so like, it made it even the pitch was even a little bit more slippy. But the class from the bench, Jared Davin had a big impact, but Peter Cooklouts, like, to come back, I'm not quite sure if it's literally off the plane sort of job, but like, he can't have had a lot of training done, and he's just magic. Like, the 2 points that he got, everything, he was involved, he was grabbing the ball straight away. Like, that's a game changer straight away, to be able to introduce a player of that caliber, and that wow X factor. Like, Cook is like that. What are we talking? A handful of players in the county that have that X factor that he has. Like, he's different grade. I suppose the big decision really now for Carl is, does he start him or does he go from the off? Because you feel like Knocknacarra are just going to say, to hell with this, lads, we're going to have a right good scalp of them. I was very impressed at the same time, even at how scrappy the game was. You could see McHugh's DNA all over Moycullen's set up. You could see the way, like, it's a bit of a trend in the Premiership as well. Particularly Brighton do it a lot, where they pretty much open up the middle of the pitch and then overload the flanks. And you could see on both sidelines, Moycullen kept on possession for large moments, like phase after phase after phase. They could have 5-6 minutes of possession. They would just line up 2 or 3 on both sidelines, and eventually, like, leave the whole middle channel open. And like, it was James's, as we know, like to set up pretty defensively as well and pretty structured, but it created a lot of confusion. So I think that's going to be fascinating, the tactical battle as well. how they can develop that a bit more. But look, really, really exciting game. Because you feel like both sides are coming into this in a lot of form. I think this could be a humdinger.
Yeah, on this, Stephen, as well, the point there that Uachtar, since I suppose they lost those two opening games, the Clare Galway game, the Milltown game, it really seems like they've gradually improved as this championship has went on.
Uachtar, yeah, they were unlucky against Corofin actually in the first game. I think they had a chance. They brought back 3 points. They had a 2-1 and they missed it, where they could have drawn up the match. But they have steadily improved, and they are playing, as Jonathan says, they are playing some nice football. But unfortunately, I don't think nice football is going to wear it, possibly against a defence like Moycullen. Because we know one thing I would criticise from Moycullen for, even when they did win actually the championship, was they were possibly too defensive for the quality of player that they had. And when they went outside of the county and into Connacht and into an All-Ireland series, they didn't play enough actual football. It was maybe too much of a possession game, where they were holding onto the ball rather than using the skill and the quality that they had. I think Uachtar obviously won't fear them. It's a local derby, even though I don't think there's no great history of them coming up against one another in recent times, but they would have gone to school together and all that sort of thing. So it is a local derby, but I think it's going to be a different nut to crack for Uachtar, because this high ball into the square, where they were using Matthew Tierney, Dan Kinney and these lads, worked against Clare Galway, worked against Milltown, but I really cannot see it working as successful against Moycullen. And Moycullen, with the players, Peter Cook coming back, Niall Mulcahy, Sean Kelly back playing, even though they're not playing at their best, I mean, it's knockout football now, and you're probably going to see a further step up in form from Moycullen. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for Uachtar.
And that, Stephen, would you see Uachtar maybe moving back to what we've seen maybe in earlier games there? Because as you mentioned, that high ball tactic, it has worked, but with the numbers Moycullen drop, they're definitely not going to even have chances to, I suppose, utilise this ball that's got them so much success.
No, I don't think they are, to be honest. They may try, they may not, but I'd say it will be a defensive, probably a dour first 20-25 minutes. I cannot see probably a low scoring. Moycullen will be holding on to the ball, probably just trying to open up channels, like Jonathan says. Uachtar will probably likewise. Uachtar depending on the high ball, but they have some quality players that can, like the likes of the two Monaghan's, Keane and Ryan Monaghan, are two very good footballers and have contributed an awful lot to the scoreboard in a quick ball situation where they are good on the ball. But again, the quality of defenders that Moycullen have with the Kellys and that and David Wynne, like they're very strong. Our Offaly, they're Offaly buy in as well. So they have a good strong defence. So it's going to be hard for Moycullen to come up with the necessary scores to win this game, in my opinion. A goal would be a huge score in this game, especially if Uachtar were to get it. But I find it difficult to see that it's going to happen. I would be surprised if Moycullen didn't win this by a couple of points, to be honest.
On Moycullen, just before we get in and maybe just look at some of the matchups, because there is some really intriguing matchups here, Jonathan. But would you expect Jared Davern and Peter Cook to come straight back into the 15 this weekend?
Yeah, look, it almost depends on the game plan, really, doesn't it? Like, if they are to go cautious, keep it tight, wear down, looking across and seeing the performance where it was helter-skelter and seeing that raw run, and will they try and set up, a little bit more, almost like the two game plans that we've seen a lot of modern Gaelic football. You set up one, you set defensive, you quieten them down for a while, and then you bring on the bit of a wow factor to open things up and stretch events. What you would say is, it just depends on how fit Peter is. Like, because if Peter Cook is fit, I think you have to start him. I think he's that good. I think he's that pivotal. I think he's that streetwise. I think he's that important to the game plan. Davern, has a big impact as well. But he probably maybe feels like a player where they can throw on if they do need an aerial bombardment option, as they kind of did at the end of the St. James's match. Because there's still a lot of ball winners out there, particularly Niall Walsh, and the likes inside. There probably is enough there from the start. So on the two, if you'd have gone to my head at the moment, you'd probably say, assuming that he's fit, Peter Cook to start and maybe Darwin to come on as the impact, possibly as another man in around the edge of the square.
Yeah, it does feel like they're finding it difficult even with their back six, because even if you look at their back six, it's been Conor Corcoran, Sean Kelly, Michael Mann, Aidan Claffey, David Wynne, Johnny Maloney, and then obviously three other backs in that, and Owen Kelly, Keane Dean, and Neil Mulcahy playing further out the pitch to try and get them into the pitch. Maybe that's to do with their setup.
Perhaps, but like on that against James's Dean and Mulcahy were pretty much hybrid wing forwards. If they started that way, anyway. So like you touched on, maybe it is a little bit of that kind of game plan, and we've seen it so many times, haven't we? You put ball winners up the wings and try and stretch play that way, particularly if it is that sort of game plan as well. So I don't know if that's horses for courses or if that's been forced on because that you rhymed off a lot of strong defenders there. But like I think you're still looking at the likes. The importance of Tom Clark in this game is going to be huge. It really is, because Gerard, big men as we touched on, powerful out the middle. Kenny and Tierney out the middle, quite strong. Can play. Can also that danger tactics of lining them midfield. And we've seen so many players, even Jack O'Neill comes to mind in this sort of role where they start out the middle, but they kind of run off the blind side in around full forward and that other option, and they're so fluid. That's why I think the likes of Tom Clark is going to be huge in this game from a Moycullen perspective. But there's so many good players on both sides there. They're rhyming off, and look, you even have to look at Eddie O'Sullivan, David Wynne, like Aidan Claffey, just for instance, like the amount of experience there for their sides at the race. So look, there's huge names on both sides here.
On the matchup side of things, Stephen, like it's obviously going to be vital for Gerard here. If like Desi Keneally, Owen Gallagher, Niall Walsh, there are three key matchups here. When you look at that full back line, maybe Philip Gibbons could be the man to go on Niall Walsh with his size. Maybe Eddie O'Sullivan goes on Desi Keneally, but they're going to be vital matchups for them.
They are, yeah. I mean, the matchups will be interesting, but I cannot see Moycullen changing much from the way they have played over the last number of years, where they will. I mean, Desi Keneally, who she would class as probably one of the top scorers in club football in Galway for a number of years now. But I don't think they actually maybe play Desi enough. He finds at times that he has to wander a long way from the goal to get the ball. I think they'd probably get a lot more benefit if they were playing more direct, and you have Niall Welch in there to win ball, and you have Desi working off him. But they don't seem to use that as much as I think possibly they should. But they have a plan, and I'm sure they're going to stick to the game plan. I remember reading something that Kieran McGeeney was once asked, "What do you have a plan B?" And he said, "No, we spend too much time working on plan A." But sure, what happens if plan B goes wrong? He said, "What's going to happen?" So I can't see them deviating much from the actual their game plan of holding onto the ball. They're patient. They're very patient. They don't panic if they go behind, such as the Dunmore match in the first round. Even though they looked at sea in the first half, they didn't panic. They got the scores in the second half when they needed them, and they won the game comfortably in the end. And possibly the same in the other games they played. Don't look good, look like they're struggling, and yet they come up with the win. So they have huge experience in that panel, which while Luke Dreyer possibly have at a different level, they've come up from intermediate a couple of years ago, wouldn't have the same senior experience that Moycullen would have. So it's going to be very, very difficult for them. There's going to be no ball kicked out 50-50 out the middle of the field, unlikely. Uachtar struggle a bit on their kickouts, and I'm sure Moycullen will possibly see that if you push up on that. Their Alan Murphy in goal has been under pressure on the kickouts at times, so I'm sure Moycullen will see that as well.
It really feels like Moycullen are going to go after that, that press, and they're just going to be ravenous this weekend.
Yeah, I'd say if they do, they'll get a return from it, because they did struggle. They definitely struggled on their kickouts in the last few minutes.
It's noticeable though that the going short from the Tuam game, as lessons have been learned. It's more kick it out to the big men. Particularly I noticed against Milltown, And I believe in the Clare Galway match as well. It's a bit more drive it out in the middle, out to the big men, rather than going short as they were early in the year, and they got caught a couple of times.
Yeah, even Paddy Walsh coming in the last day, it seemed to be kind of, he was obviously in there, and another big man to have around the kickouts.
Yeah, but they're going to come up against equally big men in Moycullen, so they're not going to get some change out of kicking the ball straight out the middle, I don't.
Just before we get predictions, Stephen, how would you see Moycullen lining up against the two Tierneys and the two Monaghan's? Because it's going to be intriguing.
It is, but I think defences nowadays, it's not so much man for man. You might pick out if there's a very dangerous forward, you'd say, okay, he picks, someone so and so picks him up. But I think it's more of a zonal defence now, that you pick up whoever comes into your area. Obviously, Keane in particular, Ryan Monaghan, he roams out the field. He's very comfortable on the ball. I would expect they possibly put a runner on him. You could even say Sean Kelly if he's lined out full back. I mean, Sean Kelly going the other way could cause a lot of trouble if depending on his fitness and his injury. He seems to be recovered, and so if he is, him picking up the likes of Ryan Monaghan could cause a lot of trouble for Uachtarard going the other way. So it's interesting, but I think it's more zonal nowadays than man for man. Kind of, you pick up whoever comes into your zone and your players back, and you just shut down the space.
We would love at some stage, Jonathan, to see though Matthew Tierney go in the square and Sean Kelly.
Pretty tasty, right? Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Look. There's a lot of taggers, isn't there, on the Moycullen side, like Corcoran, McCahey. Like, you don't forget. Like, I know he's been away, and we talked about playing up the pitch, but like, that's the guy that is man marked. David Clifford in the Sigerson final, 2-3 years ago now, not that long ago at all. And then of course Sean, Owen can do a job as well. So like, there's a lot of hard, tight man markers there if required, and they probably will be. Like, it's the raw running, isn't it? Caldinu and Adam Tierney, they create a Milton Old sort of havoc, and from the wing backs running power. So look, this Stephen is right though. You probably will see two zones hitting off each other, but there's plenty of individual power in the pile as well. So.
Yeah, maybe it does feel like Moycullen does strength and depth here. Like, even the last day Uachtarard made one sub and was in the 64th minute. Like, if Cook and Dabrin are kept on the bench here, they could have a huge impact if this game follows the pattern we're expecting. If we go for predictions, Jonathan, we'll come to you first. How do you see this one going?
I think it'll be a battle. I think it'll be a scrap. I don't think it'll be pretty at times, potentially, because I think they will try to nullify out each other. But I think as much as a battle as Uachtarard will put up, and I expect them to put up quite a battle, I just think the experience, the class, and the bit of strength and depth from Moycullen will have enough here.
Moycullen by how much?
4.
And Stephen, you said you expect Moycullen as well. How much do you see them winning by?
I think 3-4 points. I agree with Jonathan there. I think they're going to win it by 3 plus possibly.
Yeah, I'm going to go with G2 on that one. I think Moycullen by 2, just to edge this one out in the end. If we go to the game at the same time on Saturday in Tuam Stadium, it's Salthill Knocknacarra versus Dunmore McHale's. Jonathan, you tipped Dunmore McHale's as one of your dark horses for the championship. Can they knock one of the contenders out this weekend?
Do you want to make the podcast very short? Or do you want me to put it out a bit? Yeah, I did. At risk of winding up the neighbours, I expected a lot more of Dunmore this year. Look, obviously they were quite unlucky. We spoke about Moycullen and we spoke about them, and look, don't forget Dunmore had them on the racks the first day out in Kenny Park, and only for that bit of a, will you call it freak or whatever, luck freak, whatever we want to call it, long ball in and gets a punch off Niall Walsh and goes into the net for the match deciding score. They did the job when they had to do against one of A. They won that scrap out. They did enough as well, and they kept their heads against a Lettermore side. They were probably hampered by the 2 red cards that they got against Mount Bellew the week previous as well. I think that definitely had an impact in the end. And Lettermore lost their heads completely at the end in that defeat to Dunmore. Demore will have to see. That was a pretty intense game, and even the likes of, Thomas Gleeson got a fair old clock on the head, and I think got a deep enough nick as well. So like he was phenomenal in that victory. How fit will he be in it? But look, it's a big ask. Like you're Salthill, Knocknacarra. Like okay, everyone talks about Rob Finnerty being unavailable, but like how many times am I going to keep repeating myself? John Maher, the form that he is on and that he's keeping through at the club campaign. Of people have tried, even in the couple of games that I've seen from Salthill this year, they've tried everything. They've tried to kick him, they've tried to wallop him, and he's just knocked them off and tore up the pitch. And he's been probably, along with his fellow player of the year nominee, Paul Conroy's probably one of the players of the club championship so far already. He's just kept that phenomenal form going. And they have that raw speed from depth. They destroyed Montbellier the first day out in the game that I saw in Tuam Stadium. They're finding gears other ways. Moycullen, they have such a tidy, important footballer. The new addition in goal seems to have tidied things up, as McDermott. I've been impressed with him now. That pure raw experience at the back as well. Like you wouldn't say he's running up and down or running all over the place, but he's a steady Eddie kind of reader at the back. So important as well in the modern game. And they just look really good, Salthill and Knocknacarra, and they're rightfully in that top echelon of contenders. So as much as Demore will give them a battle here, I genuinely can't see anything bar Salthill victory here and Salthill to progress and look after this when we get the draw on Sunday evening, when it's completely open and everyone's into the hat unaided. Things can get very interesting all of a sudden. Particularly, you have the opportunity for the first real time of two heavy hitters coming up against each other. And the flip side of that is it could pave the way open for someone to get an easier route into a county final. And I think straight away here, Salthill and Knocknacarra will have too much, and they'll be looking at the trip down to Tuam Stadium again for the final in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, on it, Stephen, as Jonathan mentioned there, Demore came through a huge battle, but in the opening 10 minutes against Leicestermore, they really struggled. And if they're to bring a performance like that with the quality Salthill possess, it just won't cut it this weekend.
No, I'd agree with Jonathan. No, I can't see. I mean, as you said, the first 10 minutes when Oisín and Finn McDonagh caused awful problems up to the Dunmore defence. And you can see from the pace within that Salthill Knocknacarra team from all over the pitch. I mean, what's going to happen then? Like when two players and Leicestermore were unlucky not to have scored possibly another goal or two. So it is going to be, I think, a difficult afternoon for Dunmore McHale's when you do see the quality. And off all the teams in the championship at the moment, I think Salthill are probably the most consistent from day one. Like we've seen quality from them. We've seen there's no doubt about the results any game they played. So even Corofin and Moycullen wouldn't be in that league at the moment. They're so comprehensive in their play and so strong all throughout the pitch. And even if Rob Finnerty, and I'm sure Rob is not going to be too far away from fitness.
Yeah, I was just about to say, could we see him this weekend maybe?
We could see him if required. You could see him if he's needed. But to be honest, I don't think they need to use him this weekend. But he will be there if required. But you still have quality coming from Caherlistrane, Daniel Flaherty, attacking up the field. You have Robert Walter, and of course John Maher already mentioned, footballer of the year. Well, not in the waiting possibly, but totally deserved his nomination, as did Paul Conroy, who hopefully gets footballer of the year. In my opinion, he should, but in my opinion doesn't count. But definitely, I cannot see anything other than a Salthill Knocknacarra victory here.
It was crucial too, because when they played Leicestermore, Evan Murphy picked up a knee injury, and I suppose it looked like it could be another serious one for him, because maybe he has struggled with knee injuries over the past couple of years. But to get him back in that final game against Caherlistrane, it's huge, Stephen, to keep him fit.
It is, yeah. Also, Evan, I mean, I had him as a minor, but he did have a lot of problems with knees. An excellent footballer, a great passer of the ball, can pick out a pass from 50, 60 yards away, a great footballer, and as a lot of other players they have. So it is quality, and they have a quality panel, and there's no doubt the structures that were put in place there by John O'Mahony, I think, are bearing fruit now with Finian Hanley and Sean Armstrong carrying Norman Costello carrying that through. And there's a big incentive there, I'm sure, for Salthill as well, that they'll want to win this championship. and definitely they're going to be in pole position. I think on Sunday they won't be worried. They won't be. But I cannot see them anything other than a comprehensive Salthill Knocknacarra victory.
Jonathan, for Damore, is it about this just staying in this game and bringing it down the stretch?
Yeah, look, I think from talking to people that what have I seen Damore now? Just the once actually last day out, just the way the fixtures have fallen. From people that have seen them, a complaint, whether rightly or wrongly, is that they have been a bit more cagey, a bit more defensive, and it hasn't necessarily got the best out of them. Probably going to ignore all that now. They're probably going to. They will have.
Yeah, since the Moycullen game, the scoring average for Damore has been 1-9.
Yeah, and even in the game that they won to get out against Abbey, it was, by all accounts, there was a football in there someplace. It was a slog, it was a grind, and they got over the line sort of eventually. And those scoring averages kind of tally up what the consensus has been. They're going to have to be set up like that. Running power from Salthill Knocknacarra is frightening, absolutely frightening. And you leave open country behind you, they're going to run into it all day, and they have a bit of everything. In terms of ball winners out the middle to get the ball first, to give it to the guys to run into said space. So like you do have to. I think you have to be quite rigid here. I think you have to make this a grind. You have to make this a battle. You have to squeeze the life out of it. Probably keep the scoring tallies something similar, and then hope that you can get like the likes of Costello's and McGrath and whatnot. Darcy as well was very impressive, I thought, as well, against Lettermore. And try and kind of just arm wrestle the game that sort of way, because I think if Damore trying to open up here and try and playing open expensive football here, they'll get wiped. So it has to be that type of grind, that type of battle. Like one player that caught my eye really was, from a defensive point of view, Colin Lyons, I thought was exceptional on a cornerback the last day out against Navan and Lettermore. And they're going to need that sort of raw, rugged defender at the back, tidying up like he got when Navan and Lettermore would throw forward in the second half. He must have got 3 or 4 key interventions, just coming around, sweeping, reading the ball, long ball into McDonagh, and he's coming down, winning the breaks, out of stuff. They're going to need that again. You imagine he'll have to be not a million miles away from Tomo inside. You would imagine.
Probably a decision there. One goes on Tomo, one goes on Charlie Power.
Yeah,
Danny Ford too, because he's obviously being a key man maker as well.
Yeah. So there's a couple of options there, really. I think they're going to have to, realistically, they're going to have to try and make one of them sweep as well, and try and win breaking balls like that. But look, it's a big ask. Like this is a season outfit now as well.
You mentioned McGrath there. Do you think maybe he'll be tasked with John Mayer, like, because obviously it's someone that's going to have to detail, or is it maybe someone with experience like Martin Cleary? Like, who goes after Mayer?
I think it has to be Cleary, just for the physique, and a warrior. Like Cleary was very good, particularly in the second half. I thought he really came into it after half time there against Lettermore the last day out. But look, I've seen like, I go back to the Lettermore game when Salthill played them, and they tried to kick him at the start. what he does is he's just too strong. Like, he just ploughed lads off the ball when they were trying to bounce off him, and he literally just knocked them around and ran straight up the pitch. Like, he has a bit of everything. Like, what shy of getting a rope and tying around him, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with him at the moment. But matchup wise, you would have to guess Cleary would be the most likely, but it's more of going to be a Stephen touched on a little bit earlier on. I think it is going to be that swarm zone defence, just to try and block every sort of lane that you can and try and grind it out and go for that frustration type of game plan. I can't see any other way forward here for Damore, unfortunately, but at the same time, I just can't see anything bar a Salthill victory here.
It's the thing, Stephen, like we mentioned, the Salthill inside line and John Mayer, they're all crucial matchups, but Matthew Thompson as well is going to be a crucial matchup for them. And then, like, with that, they're obviously going to hope to get huge performances out of Slattery and the two Costellos here. But then Salthill do have that defence of Sweeney and O'Flaherty and these players to shut the Dunmore forwards down.
They do. We have Brian Power Costello the last day. He's 3, 4, 5, 7 or 8 points. So that freeze had a big, huge influence on the game. But they're not going to get that type of space. And if they have to go into this defensive block to try and close down Salthill. Then when they get the ball, win the ball back, they're going to have to get players up the field, move the ball up. I think so, again, the power that Salthill have, I think, will prevent them from doing that. They were holding on to the ball against Lettermore. They were working it up slowly. They were patient. They're not going to get that time on the ball against Salthill. They're going to be pushed back when they try and come out, and it's going to be very difficult for them. They'll learn a lot from it. They're a young team, but I think it's going to be a long afternoon for them, to be honest.
You're saying a long afternoon there, Stephen, so we'll start with you first. Salthill by how much?
5+.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Salthill by 6. And Jonathan?
Yeah, I would have said something similar, 5 or 6 Salthill victory.
We're going to move to the quarterfinal then in Tuam on Sunday at 4:15. Annaghdown and Tuam Stars. Jonathan, this is another. Well, for me, I think this is going to be the quarterfinal of the weekend.
Ooh, I'm not sure I'd agree with that one. For me, I fancy Oak Gerard, and Moycullen is probably my most intriguing game. Yeah, no, it is. It's certainly a lively game. Something I wouldn't say you'd be knocking any sort of dim format or anything like that. Real classic North Galway pairing here. But like, can you talk about this game without going to the number one question? Is Damien Comer? What sort of state is he going to be in? How fit is he? How can he perform? How much is in the legs? How bad is that injury? Is he ample enough just to play at the edge of the square and take a couple of men with him without having an impact, or is there gas in the legs? Has he the hour in him like these?
From what I heard, there is.
Yeah, well, that changes things straight away, because like, with great respect, Annaghdown with or without Comer are two different teams, and look, you only have to look at the results. What is it? Match winning goal first day out against Barna towards the end, last couple of minutes, from the turnover from the kick out, and he drives it into the net in Pearse Stadium. Match winning goal after the hot ball after the kick out in Tuam Stadium against Milltown. Like, he's just different gravy. I know this is I won't say it's just 14 players plus Damien Comer. There is a lot of quality there as well, but like, Damien Comer is an absolute superstar. Damien Comer has created problems to intercounty teams up and down the land for many years now. It'll have so much of an impact on proceedings whether he does start, and even if he starts, how fit he is. Because like, if there was a man to put his body in the line, it's Damien as well. Particularly such a big game for his side. Probably the dream draw for both sides, you'd say, as well, in terms of tagging each other. How Boyd or Tuam, after getting over the line against Montpellier Moyla, I know it was a side that were missing John Daly and hampered with players abroad and whatnot, but they still had to go get the job done. And like, small little facets like Grugan coming on and get with his first touch, getting the match clinching score, how much is in his legs as well. You feel like they will need that star power. Having someone like Grugan straight away opens up the door. The pressure's off Jamie Murphy straight away. Brian Mannion might have a bit more room, etc., etc. So there's all sorts of knock-on effects there as well. Huge victory last day out for Tuam on that, and to be able to build on that, because like, if you think about Tuam for the last couple of years, you're thinking about disappointment. You're thinking about, what it could have been almost. You're thinking about the league finals, both against Corofin, without their array of attacking players, and they couldn't get over the line. Like last year, 21-yard free in front of the town goal at the end to wrap it up. It was missed. They losing penalties, a huge sucker punch. This year, they have the game, it feels like, in control, and then they get caught with a goal at the end, and they have a couple of opportunities and they don't quite put the foot down. But I think Dave Donlan now has got his starting to get his DNA on the side. Seems to be a very spirited camp. Everyone pushing on the same one way and whatnot, and to get over the line, to get that tangible victory is huge. So much will depend on Comer, really, isn't it? You can ramble all day long, and you come back and you'll talk around, and you'll talk about matchups, and you talk about players, and you're talking about the power out in the middle of the field. Like, you'll be fascinating to see the likes of Kilcummins versus McGlinchey out in the middle of the field. Two bears against each other. But you'll swing all the way around, and you'll go, how fit is Damien Comer? It feels like you're talking about Galway again, doesn't it?
Stephen, how do you see this one?
Well, I'd say this is the most difficult of the four matches to call, in my opinion. It could go either way. But the availability or the fitness of Damien Comer certainly will have a big bearing on it, because I was at the Annaghdown or Killannon game, and Damien Comer went off with an injury that day, and Annaghdown were in complete control of the game when he went off. But seemed like it, as Jonathan says, they were a totally different team in the second half, and Killannon were unlucky not to come away with something. So Damien Comer is key to the Annaghdown performance, certainly. Frankie Burke is another experienced player that they have, but then they have a young side. Tuam, on the other hand, the victory over Montpellier will give them huge confidence. I think it'll depend on how Tuam deal with Damien Comer if he's available and fit, which I'm sure he possibly will be. How well they can mark him. If he's in full forward, I'm sure Annaghdown will be trying to win the ball out the middle with Kilcommons and Liam Murphy. I was impressed by Liam Murphy in the Killannon match. He won a lot of ball in the middle of the field, and very strong on the ball as well. But it'll depend on him getting the ball into Damien. Of course, if he's not getting it, Damien usually comes out the fields and wins ball out there. But Tuam, young McGlinchey, very good footballer, great prospect, and hopefully we'll see him in the maroon jersey in the years ahead. So it's a very difficult one. Will depend an awful lot on Damien Comer if he's back to full fitness or if he lasts the full game. I'd be inclined to think that maybe overall as a team, maybe a little bit more experience together as a team, I would be inclined to think to lean towards Tuam, but it's a difficult one to call.
The midfield battle, there you mentioned, Stephen, Lee Murphy's obviously kept true this year, and he took his goal excellently against Killannon. He brings huge energy to that Annaghdown midfield, and you have Michael Knocknacarra in there as well, and Owen Reddington. It's nearly like a bit of an old school midfield pair in there for Annaghdown, but they give it their all, and even with moving German back to 6 this year. And then on that, like, Tuam did struggle on their long kickouts against Montpellier as well.
Yeah, well, there's huge strength there in the middle of the field with Annaghdown, and even Damien comes out there for kickouts as well. So they will win the fair share of ball in the middle of the field. They will, and then if you have Damien inside, the ball goes in, and Frankie Burke shoots the lights out. Even still, if he gets a sniff of the goal at all, he can kick the ball over the bar. He can kick 3 or 4 points you won't even have nothing, without like even batting an eyelid. So Annaghdown possibly have a slight advantage, maybe physically around the middle of the field. Will it be a midfield battle? It's hard to see. Tuam kicking the ball out to where the big men are, probably try and go short. I haven't seen Tuam playing in the flesh, so I cannot really comment on how strong they are in that department. But it's a difficult one. I'm only going on instinct here by saying maybe Tuam have a slight advantage, but it could. I wasn't overly impressed by Annaghdown without Damien Comer, but as Jonathan says earlier, with Damien Comer, they're obviously a different team. And it's going to come down to, is Damien Comer fit to play the full game? If he is, certainly Annaghdown have a huge chance. If not, it should be Tuam. It would be Tuam. I would expect Tuam to win
it. Jonathan, you mentioned Damien Comer's importance, and you can say the same nearly when it comes to Tuam with Jamie Murphy and Brian Mannion. Like, they're going to be crucial matchups for Annaghdown.
Oh, hugely. Yeah, hugely. Probably like Jamie Murphy kind of has evolved himself back in again, where he has to be leading the charge from the off. He's more starting games and coming off towards the end now, as opposed to maybe the desired nearly bring him on for the impact sort of role, that kind of Soupy Campbell sort of role over the course of the intercounty season. Like the Grugan as well, if you can get a player of that caliber to get 40 minutes.
It doesn't look like Grugan's going to start even the last day when he came on. He kicked the point well, but it still looks like he's carrying some sort of knock.
Yeah, it does look like he's burning a bit rich for now. Like even the first ball that was into him, it was bet out of gate. He wasn't near it. He feels like maybe possibly the impact sort of player when the game is getting stretched, because like he has, anyone that's seen him over the years, he has that wow X factor as well. You don't have that sort of CV without having extreme quality. Yeah, look, there is a lot of pressure on Mannion and on Murphy, of course. Tuam will all need their big players. You're looking at Gary O'Donnell. You're looking at so many, like all the way through from Faulkner and goal. You know, very strong full back line as well. A lot of impressive players there as well, and have been. And I just think, like I know you're saying like Damien's a good chance of him playing. We're just leaning towards Tuam. Just obviously that decision whether he is or he's not fit is going to be huge. That will be a pivotal outcome in the game. But I still think Tuam will have just a bit too much, and I think they have the bit of momentum as much as it'll be. Probably cut the line on me here now. But I'm leaning towards Tuam at the moment, I have to say.
Yeah, I know you're both leaning towards Tuam, so I'm gonna start predictions, obviously, and it might come across a bit biased here.
And it's down by 10, is it?
But I'm gonna go Annaghdown by 2 to win this weekend and maintain their unbeaten record. You're obviously going there for Tuam, Jonathan, by how much?
Tight. I'd say 2 as well. Yeah, Tuam by 2.
And Tuam by how much for you, Stephen?
1 point.
That's all that matters.
Well, if it does go to Annaghdown,
we're only going against 2, Paul, just to right now.
if Annaghdown do come out on top, I'll be the first one to remind you on Sunday evening. If we look at the fourth quarter final then, that's earlier in Pearse Stadium at 3:00, Corofin and Caherlistrane. Jonathan, you've seen Caherlistrane in the preliminary quarter final against James's. I suppose the doubts people probably have that people are just convinced that Corofin are going to have too much in this one, and where it does feel like Caherlistrane are going to struggle here is, do they really have the matchups for the Corofin forwards?
Oh yeah, like I was ultra impressed with Caherlistrane there. It was actually a great game of football last Thursday night. In Corofin, beautiful ground for the occasion, you would say. It added the whole atmosphere, and we saw a royal old throwback, and we've seen a good bit of that actually over the prelim quarterfinals. The long ball becoming back in fashion again. It's a game that started off pretty much for a long boomer from Dara Walsh, scored in the opening couple of seconds even, and then Keane Folan gets his first goal. It's a long ball driven in, he catches us and finishes beautifully, and he does the same just before half time as well. And St. James's got in on the act in the second half as well, and you know it was enthralling to watch at the end because you had Sam O'Neill and Paul Conroy in a 2-man full forward line, and they just started horse and ball in. It was real old school. It was a real throwback. We've talking about zonal defenses and sweepers and whatnot, but it was nice to see the flashback and both sides getting huge dividends off it. I was really impressed. Like this is the coming together really for a couple of things with Caherlistrane. Anyone that watched their under-19 side last year win the county title will know how much talent that there is in the side, and not just talent in terms of quality. Their matches with a couple of big men as well, and that's no more so than their midfield pairing, Dara Walsh and Roach in the middle, and both of them were very impressive. Roach kind of dropped off and swept a good bit, picked up a power ball, was very clever on the football, and that's a dynamic, big, strong football intelligence, shooting, a little bit of defensive cover. It's almost like the perfect midfield pairing, and look, that's a midfield pairing for injury forbidding that Caherlistrane can go to for 10-12 years on the route. There's plenty of football ahead on those young guys, and they can certainly build the spine off the team off them going forward. What you would say is, because they're so young, if it turns into an almighty scrap, as we probably saw in the round 1 game in Pearse Stadium against Milltown, where Caherlistrane started 100 miles an hour, both of those players were phenomenal for about 20 minutes, but then Milltown, I think there's no other way of describing it, dogged their way back into the game, and the 2 youngsters were nullified, as was the majority of the team. But that's what you'd fear might happen against someone as streetwise and experienced as Corofin. But like Caherlistrane have plenty up their locker. Sweeney's 6 and 14 are as good as any. Very powerful, very strong. Read the game so well. The score to wrap it up in Corofin came from Sweeney at the end, and got a huge score after there was a debatable enough decision for the goal on Conroy. We won't get into that now again, but there is plenty. Of course, Johnny Heaney was outstanding as well in that. Like, one of the points that he got outside of the boot from about 45 yards out in front of the stand, you're just going, wow, this is sensational stuff. Kelly as well, the centre forward, got on a lot of ball, a couple of nice scores. So they are glittered and Folan up top pretty much is that long ball. He can win a ball, he can finish a ball. So they have a little bit of everything really there, you would say. But it's Corofin. That's like, yeah, like it's weird. I have, and I will still say that Corofin are my winners, and I've said that all year long. But their game against Tuam in the last day out that I saw them in Tuam Stadium, like for the first half, they're outstanding. The goals, like Conor Cunningham's goal, that little dig pass from Gary Sice, and Cunningham takes it, centre back coming flying forward through a crowd and then rolls it across the daisies into the floor. That's just wow. That's just different level football. Gill as well at the start, and the movement they have, the strength out in the middle, the experience, the endless quality of players like that they have available to them. Like it's nearly going to be a fight for positions on the substitute bench the way things are going with them. They have that much firepower, they have that much quality. It's insane really when you think about it. But at the same time, Tuam left a lot behind them in that game. Tuam exploited a lot of gaps. Tuam left a lot of question marks that I haven't seen of Corofin probably since the Bridget's game last year down at the height. That's how far back you're talking about to see them exploited that much. But knowing Kevin Johnson, he probably sees that as a positive now because he'll use that opportunity to try and square them off, like you saw in the semi-final last year when Milltown went along at the end and created a little bit of an avalanche and created a few panics. That was all tidied up come the county final, and so they will have an opportunity to work on that. They've had the week off. As much as you fancy Killala to come on and keep things going, and I've spoken about all their qualities, it's Corofin, and how could you bet against Corofin here?
Yeah, it really does feel like you can't see any other winner here than Corofin, Stephen.
No, to be honest, no. And the reigning champions, we might have all thought 2 years ago that Corofin were gone, but I think they're shown last year they came back stronger than ever. Was a couple of new players, the likes of Jack McCabe and Patrick Egan added to the team as starters. So like they've huge experience, they've huge talent, they've huge strong bench, they have everything they haven't been, to be honest, they haven't been overly impressive so far this year, we must say. I mean, I've seen them play twice, and Uachtar even could have put them under. So they played very well in the first half, then left the game there, same in the Tuam game, left the game there in the second half that it could have gone either way, even though I suppose they were comfortable enough in the end. But they have that experience, they have that cuteness. I don't think Killannon would have anything near, like you take the two Sweeneys, who definitely have the experience, Johnny Heaney. But apart from that, we have a lot of young lads there who looked very ordinary to me in the Annaghdown match, particularly when Damien Coleman was playing in the first half. They to look like they were a bit at sea. So again, if Corofin up the intensity and bring the physicality to the game, it's hard to see how Killannon are going to be able to match that. And it has to be Corofin all the way, I'd say. I couldn't see anything other than a Corofin victory here, to be honest.
It will be interesting, though, Stephen, to see how Kevin Walsh sets up this Killannon side and how they will approach Corofin this weekend.
It will. I mean, Kevin Welsh would be known, I suppose, for going defensive. Possibly they've maybe gone a bit more attack-wise in the last game, as Jonathan has said there. I wasn't at the game with James's, but I mean, the high ball at all levels of football, we seem to see goals when the high ball goes in desperation. You nearly always end up with scores or goals. Uachtar have used it effectively during the match, so maybe it's something they'll try early on to get quick high ball into the Corofin square, because there's no big catchers in there. The last game I saw them playing, Dylan McHugh was back fullback. He's not a fullback. I mean, Liam Silk out in the halfback, and none of them would be possibly over comfortable on high ball. So I think if Killannon are going to come up with a tactic that will possibly cause a bit of some headaches for Corofin, it would have to be early high ball in and try and work off that. But I cannot see them being able to handle the quality Corofin have up the other end of the field when Corofin forwards get on the ball. So I think they'll have to try and crowd it, but maybe get some high ball in as well and try and utilise a bit of power they have in Patrick Sweeney and some of Johnny Heaney and some of the bigger lads in the middle of the field. But it's hard to see how Corofin, one thing normally you'd associate with Corofin is you have a settled team from start of the year, kind of one or two changes, but they seem to have switched the team around a good bit during the matches we've seen so far. I'm not so sure they're settled on a team yet, and there is huge competition for places, obviously, which is good, which will drive them on further, no doubt, coming to the knockout stages now. So Corofin are going to be certainly up for this, and anything other than a Corofin victory would be total surprise.
It's a good point, Jonathan, that Stephen makes there about the Corofin starting 15. Obviously, there's so much competition there, but that does come with its challenges too, because for Kevin Johnson, it has been hard, even when he's making these switches, to get that best 15 on the pitch.
Yeah, it has been. And, I remember speaking to Kevin after the league final. Yeah, it was the league final, and you're talking about, look, you've all these guys to come back. And it wasn't just the array of Galway players, it was all players that might have been out or away or injured or whatnot. The array of talent is just ridiculous, and you see their intermediate team as well. Look at the quality on that. It's nearly ridiculous, isn't it? I think nearly every club in the county is insanely jealous of that conveyor of talent. And I suppose it does come with its challenges as well. So far, Kevin Johnson has proved very, very admirable in terms of being able to juggle the cards enough. And, at the same time, he has shown that he's spoken a lot about under 19 teams as well that have been victorious there and get them embedded into it. And I suppose you look at someone like Patrick Egan, who started with the intermediates last year, came the way through, ended up getting in the Galway panel. Despite the big names that are available to him, that he isn't afraid to freshen it up, and you have to earn your place on the side there as well. So look, that gives them I think it gives them an envious position. I think they're just too much firepower there.
Yeah, I suppose from the Tuam game, the one player you might expect to come back into the starting 15 who missed that game is probably Mike Farrer.
You potentially not a bad player to bring back in. It's insane. It's a juggling act. I'd love to know what's in the water up there, but they have an abundance of options, shall we say, and I think that's why they're nearly everybody's favourites to make sure that the Frank Fox is going down the N17 again.
Yes, we're going to go with predictions here. I'm going to start. I'm going to go Corofin by 9 in this one. Jonathan, how do you see it?
6.
And Stephen, how do you see it?
6 plus.
6 plus again. Yeah, so they're the 4 quarters. We will just quickly look at the relegation games before we look at the intermediate. 4 o'clock on Saturday in Milltown, Caherlistrane, Clare, Galway. It won't come as a massive surprise for Caherlistrane to be here, but for Clare, Galway, it does come as somewhat of a surprise that they've ended up in a relegation semi-final, Stephen.
Yeah, possibly. I suppose you would have expected at the beginning of the year that they would maybe at least get to a quarter final, but they were unlucky. I think they lost the 2 games by a point, and in the last game against Outre-Aire, was it when they played Outre-Aire? I mean, they weren't able to deal with the high ball. They've a lot of good footballers, maybe the same level. They're good at carrying the ball, but there's no real marquee forwards that are causing big problems to defences. Young Granger the last year, I think, when towards the end of the game, he kicked a few great scores, but then he had an opportunity to put them into the quarter final, I think, with the last mark that he took, but it was narrowly wide. But their struggle up front for scores, which is a problem for them. On the other hand, Caherlistrane have been totally struggling all year, only scored 2 points in the last game, and that's certainly not near anything that's going to keep you in senior football. But having said that, I could see them, they've done it last year, I could see them rising to the occasion here. They have some good footballers, they have some big men. I think if they take a leaf from the Outre-Aire book, if I was involved with Caherlistrane, I would be getting high ball in there on top of the Clare Galway defence all day and trying to reap reward.
Are you saying they're plant Stephen Lawless on the edge of the square?
Well, I can't talk about my nephew like that, but
Drive it in.
but I would. I mean, yeah, I would have the likes of Stephen Lawless in there. I know in the past, even in my own experience, we played them in a league match a few years ago. It was with Derden, and we had the game practically won. They put Stephen Lawless in, kicked one big high ball in, and he got his big paw to it, and it ended up in the net, and the game was a draw. So yes, it does. As I said earlier, the high ball still reaps rewards, and I think if Caherlistrane are to win this game, I think they need to be more direct and use the likes of possibly Stephen Lawless to have other big men like Kevin Alley comes off the bench. That they need to use that type of use that game, because I think they can still win this, and it wouldn't surprise me if they got out of this on Saturday.
How do you see this one, Jonathan?
Oh, there's such battles, aren't they, at this time of year? They really are. Like, I think Claregalway will have enough, and it was to get to survive. I can't see them getting dragged into a battle completely. I'd be very worried about Caherlistrane. I think they're hampered. We talked about the players that have been unavailable, injury and transfers. Like you only saw, Keane Darcy for Ballyboden giving I suppose a scare to the All Ireland or Crokes All Ireland champions from a couple of years ago. At the weekend gone by, I think it's a big ask here, but I'd be worried about Caherlistrane.
Claregalway, how much there, Jonathan?
Whoa. Claregalway, if they get motoring, could win by 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think Claregalway by 3, and this one I think there will be a big performance in Caherlistrane, because I think they know now after the last 2 games, a combined score of 130 isn't going to cut it, and they're fighting for their lives here to survive in senior. Stephen, what's your prediction there?
I think, as I said, I can see a big performance from Caherlistrane. I've seen Claregalway play now on 2 occasions, and I think they're lacking in marquee forwards that are kicking scores. So based on that, I'm going to go and say I'm going to give it to Caherlistrane by 1.
That's the prediction, anyways, of the weekend. We've heard it here first now, so we'll go with the other relegation semi-final. Barna Monavea Abbey, Sunday 12 o'clock, Pearse Stadium. Fairly 50-50 here now, Jonathan.
It is extremely. And Barna probably come into it in the most bit of momentum, considering the fact that they won their last game against Milltown, finished that game quite strong. I think on reflection, they'll potentially look back on a 45 at the end that they didn't try and work a goal off and try and get the scoring rates up a bit more. I think it felt like a side that maybe didn't realise that they needed another point or 2, if that made sense. But at the same time, winning the game like that, a tight game that they had to win it, I think that sets them up nicely. Abbey, though, you're like, if ever there's a team to be fighting and dying for the cause this time of year, it's probably them. Would have been disappointed to come the wrong side of the game against Dunmore. I think it's very, very easy. I think even the fact that it's in Pearse Stadium as well probably edges it slightly back towards Barna. I think it might set up their game plan a little bit better. Trying to get a prediction, a genuinely very hard game to predict here. Sean Dawn in particular was very impressive against Milltown. He shot the lights out. Milltown couldn't really handle him. If he's on the form again, I know you're looking at Monavea, looking straight away. People are going to rightfully go killing McDade and the power and the strength that he has. Will Sean Fitz try and tag him? If he does, that could get very interesting as well. From a
Keane Hernan won't be a million miles away too either.
Big game to throw yourself back into it as well with a hand injury. But yeah, that certainly would boost their side. Oh, I'm genuinely struggling to predict this one. Maybe. Oh, come back to me.
Yeah,
it's this one is really hard to predict.
I'm going to go there for Barna by 2 points to squeeze through this one. How do you see this one, Stephen?
I think, like Jonathan says, very, very difficult to call. Bern, I suppose, have slight bit of momentum. Keane Hernan, if he's back, would be a boost to them. Monavea Abbey having just coming up last year, they're going to put a huge effort into this. So could go either way. I will say Monavea Abbey by 2.
And Jonathan, the final call.
Cast and vote, is it? For all the pin to the dressing room wall. Yeah, but I'll stay local. Monavea Abbey by 1.
Stay local. That's a great one over a prediction there. We'll move to the intermediate preliminary quarterfinals. We'll start off the first one on Saturday at 3 o'clock. It's Kilconnelly versus Meehoun Brannocks. Brannocks got through in the end, somehow out of their group. Kilconnelly there's no point in saying otherwise, were hammered to Brendan's in their last group game. So, Stephen, for this one between Kilconnelly and Brannocks, it's absolutely impossible to know where either side are.
It is absolutely impossible to know where either side are. Yeah, Kilconnelly haven't been very impressive at all this year. Have seemed to have gone back enough. Of course, Paul Mangan was a huge loss.
Like if Clifton didn't get that goal, Kilconnelly would be in relegation.
Kilconnelly would have been in relegation, yeah. And Clifton were very, very lucky to get that goal in that game. Obviously, I was at that game, and they were very, very lucky. It looked like they were dead and buried, even though the result didn't matter to them, but it certainly mattered to Kilconnelly. Kilconnelly well beaten by Brendan's in the last game. Brendan's weren't over impressive, in my opinion. I've seen them playing against Aaron, not over impressive. So Kilconnelly without Paul Mangan obviously will struggle every day of the week. David Prendergast also missing. Conor Marsden from last year. That's 3 marquee forwards that are down. Possibly, I believe Paul Mangan will be back for the Brantnos match. Brantnos disappointing up to the Cartoon match in the last game, won it comfortably, but very, very difficult one to call here. The experience probably at this level is with Kilconnelly, having been in the last couple of county finals, but it definitely could go either way.
Yeah, it is. When we come to Brannocks there, Jonathan, even when Stephen touches on Kilconnelly, it's definitely a season we expected a lot more from Brannocks.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of similarities with my touch for team to be impressive and the breakthrough in terms of Damore and Senior. I would have thought the same with Brannock in intermediate, and they pulled out of the fire the last day out. That Caherlistrane game, the first day out, came as a big shock to me. I think I have to hold my hands up. I didn't realise Caherlistrane were that good, that they had that much firepower, and they've been very, very impressive over the course of the group campaign. Brannock, as you touched on, it's a weird game, isn't it? Like, this is Brannock coming in, just getting the win that they needed. Has that steadied the ship, or are they going to go back to the form of the other two games? And Kilconnelly,
you have a team coming in who scraped through, and then you have a team who was lost by 13 points coming in. So
it's mad, isn't it? Like in Kilconnelly, again, another side that you'd fancy after going so close the last couple of years to have pushed on and to be one of the standout contenders, and they get through by the skin of their teeth ultimately on the last round of group games. I'd probably lean towards Brannock, just in the fact that you would imagine that after getting that victory that will steady the ship, that they will have the momentum coming forward. And I think at this level, someone like Cillian O'Corrine is a superstar in the making. And I think just having that little bit of firepower will see them just edge the way through.
Brannocks by how much for you there, Jonathan?
2.
Yeah, I'm going to go Brannocks by 3. And Stephen, how do you see it?
I'll go with Brannocks as well. Brannocks by 2.
If we look at the other prelim quarterfinal at the same time in Tuam, Brendan's coming into this one on the back of their big victory over Kilconnelly and Corofin being narrowly pipped by Spideal in their final group game. This could be another close one here, Stephen.
Certainly, I see this has been very close, whereas people would might think with Corofin B or whatever, but as you say, they were just pipped by a point by Spideal. They actually drew with Gabriel, who topped the group, so they've only lost one game. As for Brendan's, I mean, they drew with Aaron, probably lucky on that occasion to draw. looked like they were out of it and they got a goal to bring them back into the game. So it's it's a difficult one to call. Corofin, I would be inclined to think that Corofin possibly will have the. I know I went against Brendan in the first round as well with Clifton, and I'm inclined to say that Corofin will win this one.
Yeah, for Brendan Jonathan, like Carl Healy and Rory Cunningham have just been crucial. Both got 1-2 apiece the last day.
Yeah, Cunningham in particular, like what Monaghan, wasn't it? Monaghan League game,
yeah.
where he comes on and shows just raw firepower and raw quickness of thinking. Like his second goal, was it in the first half? It kind of broke and he just grabbed it and stuck it in the top left hand corner without a blink of an eye. Just shows the bit of natural raw finishing that you either have or you don't have, and he has it in abundance. It would have been unfortunate, really, the way that the nature of the year turned out with his injuries, that he wasn't able to probably build on that and get closer to potential championship action.
Yeah, he didn't play after round 7 of the league from that Kerry game.
Just hampered with injuries. Yeah, like you feel that with all the injuries that they had with the rest of the squad, that he might have got his opportunity, even if it was a London or the games later on in the year, just given there was just so many injuries. But to see him back in flying again for the club is great to see. At the same time, though, I think there's a bit of firepower. I think Corofin B have had a little bit of wobble. They seem to start ultra impressive, and then the backside kind of came out of it a bit. But I just think, particularly with the senior side going so hard, and the fact that there's potentially an opportunity for players to put their hand up for a position in that squad/team, I think it gives another little bit of a boost, and I would just edge slightly towards Corofin here.
By how much for you there, Jonathan?
2.
Yeah, I'm going Brennan's by 3 there. I think they're going to build on this Kilconnelly victory that they got in their final game. You said Corofin beat there, Stephen, by how much for you there?
2.
So we'll look at the third preliminary quarter-final on Spideal, Glenamaddy 1:45 Sunday in Pearse Stadium. For people who are actually looking for as many matches as they can on Sunday, there is a triple header in Pearse Stadium. So it could be one worth going to there. Spideal have turned their season around after losing to Gabriel's in the opening day, and it was probably a disappointing result for them. Glenamaddy, just since getting their first win against Menlaw in their final 2 games against Moycullen and Ormore, they have suffered big defeats, Jonathan.
They have. I don't think it's been the curve for Glenamaddy hasn't gone as they would have hoped over the year so far. What have they? The victory over Menlaw.
That's it.
That's it,
2 defeats. Yeah, lost to Moycullen and Ormore.
And Ormore, yeah. No, Moycullen Ormore are nearly, you'd nearly say, senior teams in anything but disguise. But still, given the battling qualities, even if I get the words out, that they've shown over the last couple of years, they haven't had that bite really. I know, in a couple of games there's been a bounce of the ball here, or opportunity come back off the post. But if they're just back into life, I suppose there's no better time than now. But it's probably not the draw that they would have liked either, really, is it? It's a big ask for the side now, huge ask.
It is a big ask, Stephen, because Spideal, as I mentioned, Spideal have turned it around since that first game.
They have, yeah, and I'm sure the first game Gabriel's probably would have expected that we're going to win that, and sometimes you get caught in the hop. But since that game, I think even they have Liam O'Kelly has come back. He's been away in Australia. Benino Lee is obviously back, and Anthony Lee, Liam O'Connell. With them type of players, in particular the three players up front, the two O'Lees and Liam O'Connell, a lot of firepower there. Glenamaddy's Corv, as Jonathan says, is going the wrong direction. Normally, we associate Glenamaddy with being very strong in the group stages.
And yeah, because they've been to the last 2 quarterfinals and just narrowly pipped in both stages.
Yes, they seem to have a problem getting past the quarterfinals, but no problem in the group. Whereas now they've just struggled to get past just one game in the group, and they're in the preliminary quarterfinal. But it's difficult to see them turning that around now, on the back of 2 defeats, and Spideal going the momentum going the other direction. So you would have to expect that Spideal would be strong enough to win this.
Spideal by how much there, Stephen?
Spideal by 3.
And Jonathan, for you?
I hope the Milltown or respective Milltown management and the Glenamaddy cover their ears. Spideal by 4.
Yeah, I'm going to go against you there. I think Glenamaddy, I don't think their management are going to be lacking in motivation, put it this way, for the weekend.
You must try to get Malahi on the pod or something, are you?
But I'm going to go there, Glenamaddy by 3. I just think there's a kick in them, particularly with the management team they have there too. We go to the final prelim, Michael's Corofin, Sunday in Tuam at 2:30. For Michael's too, obviously it was a big surprise when they lost to more, but there's a sense here with Michael's, Jonathan, that they might just seem to be hitting form at the right time.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it was a surprise losing to Ormore, because I think Ormore under Fai are exceptional. They're so well drilled, and Rawlinson is still you're talking about a superstar forward, really. I think he really is that good, particularly at intermediate level. He's a real standout player. So I wouldn't say it was a surprise, but at the same time, here it almost feels like there's the two cultures kind of coming together: the city slickers versus the small country club here. Really exciting game. I'd love to catch eyes on this one, I have to say. I think this will be quite the battle as well. I think we're blessed with the football and fixtures over the course of the weekend. It's just pretty that there's a lot of clashing with them, that we might necessarily get to see as many games that we would have liked to, but it is a minute enough window at the same time to try and squeeze them all into. You would imagine, though, that Michael's seem to have steadied the ship after last year, and like I've always said, you look at teams across the border in the Premier League, like teams that get relegated down to the Championship, they can either nearly bounce and get their act together and come straight back up, or they can stay down in the doldrums and never come back. Look how many examples have we seen that? Charlton, some before your time, Paul. On the likes, Leeds is another one, maybe perhaps. But it can be difficult for teams to suffer that disappointment, particularly the way the saga went, and everything that went with it, and it felt like the road completely went underneath them, and then they were in the relegation playoffs, and before they knew it, they were in intermediate football. But they do seem to have steadied the ship. I have been pretty impressed with them to date as well. And I think the likes of Frank Daly in this game can be key as well, just that raw experience, a bit of bite as well. You can't let it stay for enough of that, particularly against the battle that they will receive from Cortoon Shamrocks. But I will lean towards Michael's. You're probably looking at the likes of Higgins and Harlow up top to try and get the scores that they will need. And I think Michael's will just edge this one.
Do you agree, Stephen, that Michael's just might have too much in this one?
I think so. Yeah, having coming down from senior, okay, they were beaten in the first game by Ardmore, but as we know now, Ardmore are probably more serious contender than we would have expected. But under Jerry Fahey, as Jonathan says, you would expect that. And Cartoon Shamrocks have been struggled a little at this level, have lost players coming back. I think they're on the back of a 5-point defeat to Micheál Branhus in the last game, and Michael's going with 2 good wins. It's difficult to see anything here to me other than Michael's win. Now, Cartoon will probably make it difficult, keep it to a low scoring game, but at the end of the day, I would expect Michael's to come out on top. Michael's by how much there, Stephen? Michael's by 4. By 4, yeah. I think Michael's by 6. And Jonathan?
3. I'll go for the low vote.
If we look at the 2 intermediate relegation semis, Stephen, coming to you about your former club there, Illinois, and playing Williamstown on Saturday and then down at 2 o'clock, but it does feel like Ireland are going to have too much for Williamstown, given the way Williamstown have struggled throughout this championship.
Yeah, you would like to think so. That on paper it would look like that. I haven't seen Ireland playing. They struggled the first day out against Kilconnelly, who themselves struggled after, but they were rather impressive against Brendan's, and again against Clifton were very unlucky. So if they can bring that level of performance of their last 2 games, then there shouldn't be anything other than an Illinois win. But it's just to get the mental side of it right and to get up for that performance. But I think they know it's a relegation
it's a great opportunity to get out of it and to finish your year. So I think certainly I would expect Ireland to come out of this.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's hard to see Ireland being beaten in this one.
Impossible, you would say. It feels like, sadly, that what we've spoke about in terms of Caherlistrane is repleted with Williamstown here. I think their case has been pretty much decided for large periods, isn't it? They've struggled the last couple of years, and I think this is going to be one too many. I think ultimately they'll probably get relegated, sadly, from their point of view. That's the way the lines seem to be joining up at the moment. But in this game, yeah, I think Ireland will have too much for them.
Yeah, I'm going to go there for Ireland by 7. Jonathan, how do you see that one?
5.
And Stephen, how do you see it?
A 4 will do me.
Go for the low vote again.
If we go to the final relegation semi in Montbellieu on Sunday at 12 o'clock, Kilkerran, Clonberne, Menlaw, both of these clubs fairly close to each other. Kilkerran, Clonberne player Johnny Ryan guided Menlaw last year to the junior title, and he'll line out for Kilkerran against Menlaw, but I know he has been out for injury over the last few weeks, so it makes this dynamic a bit interesting here. It does feel like this one is going to be a close one though, Jonathan.
It does. You're talking about that cliche scrap again here, aren't you? Really, you really are. So much on the line. What was it I said about a game there earlier on? There might be football out there someplace in the middle of it all, but it does really feel like it'll be a grind. It really does.
Yeah, it doesn't feel, Stephen, like there's going to be much between these.
No, certainly not. I think it will be a scrap, and as Jonathan says, it might take a while before they find the football. But you would think on paper it should be Kilkerran, Clonberne, but I don't think it's that simple. And Menlaw impressive enough in winning the junior championship last year. We were unlucky not to go a bit further, possibly in the junior series. So hadn't had a good year this year, having lost all their games in the group. Kilkerran, Clonberne having 1 win, so it's a dogfight. It could go anyway. I mean, you could have extra time, you could have penalties, you could have anything, but it's a toss up, really, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to go there. Kilkerran, Clonberne by 1. How do you see it, Stephen?
Well, if I'm pushed, I would say possibly with a bit more experience at this level. I suppose you would have to say if they're going to be a winner, it should be Kilkerran, Clonberne by 2.
And Jonathan, how do you see it?
Yeah, I've only seen Menlaw once this year, and I wasn't really impressed. I'm not quite sure that the game plan that they're trying to implement, it's miles apart from what the free-flowing football that we've seen with them last year, in terms of I know it's different levels and whatnot, and you do have to adjust when you move it up. But I don't necessarily. It didn't look like everybody was aligned and that was getting some of the parts were adding up the way that they should be. It will be a battle, it will be a grind, but I would expect Kilkerran, Clonberne to have enough here to win by 3.
Just as well at the weekend, the Northboard Junior Football Championship semi-final, Hepford and Athenry Sunday at 12 o'clock in Hepford. And the winner of that game plays Killearn in the Northboard final. And then Carna Castle play Father Griffin's Aero on Sunday in Carna. And the winner of that game plays An Caherlistrane in the Westboard final. And then the Westboard winners and the Northboard winners play in the Junior Championship final. And they go forward then to represent Galway. But there is also, I suppose, the introduction that happened last year of the separate competitions between clubs' first teams and clubs' second teams. So in the Junior 2 Football Championship at the weekend, Salthill, Knocknacarra, they play Corofin on Sunday at 1 o'clock in the Prairie, and Tuam Stairs, they play St. Michael's on Saturday in Tuam at 5 o'clock. And the 2 winners of those Junior 2 quarterfinals will play Clare Galway and Montbellieu Menlaw there. And then the winners of the Junior 2 competition play the winners of the Junior Football Championship and in a county final, and the winner of that goes up to intermediate for 2025. That's how all that works. And then Bern and Annaghdown play in the Junior 2 relegation final in Merview at Saturday at 5 o'clock. So that's how the Junior Championship is progressing. But that is all we do have time for on today's show. Thanks to Jonathan and Stephen for coming on.
Cheers, Paul.